so we have another round of the fourth Arthuria Mock Debate Tournament. We have Patty Politics, we have John Lyon. For this semifinal round, Patty Politics has taken the position that socialism is a better system than capitalism, and John Lyon has taken the position that capitalism is better than socialism. As always, when we're based upon who concedes, we don't get a vocal concession from either participant. We'll put it to a voting poll in which you, the audience, can decide on who you think performed better overall in the debate. Since this is a semi-final round, the participants will have 50 minutes to debate, and then they will be cut off if they have not yet finished. Thank you both for debating. You can get started.
Thank you. Yeah. Just to, go ahead and start this off. Basically, the way I see it is we're going to be discussing, how the markets work and things like that. Maybe not so much government. We'll probably discuss governmental regulation and things like that. But I think this is more since it's capitalism versus socialism and not like, a monarchy versus socialism or, something like that. I think it will be more financial based as well as like, in terms of regulation if we discuss governmental. So yeah, just my basic argument is I think capitalism is more beneficial in terms of our cultural society or our race or whatever because we develop technologies mostly obviously we have incentives to develop technologies for the sake of mankind, health, better environment, so that we can live and prosper and thrive and whatnot. So obviously we have variable incentives or varying incentives as to why we would want to develop technology, but a really strong incentive as well as one that makes the development of technology really rapid, I would say, is the capitalistic incentive, the incentive to enter a market and create a profit from that market so that you can sustain a comfortable lifestyle. So capitalism is really good it's really effective in terms of that because not only can you, if you understand your environment and the varying markets within your environment, you can essentially play the game for lack of, I guess just to use layman's terms, like you can essentially play the game, and be a successful entrepreneur, understand and explore how to generate resources like profit, and then use those resources to create a structure of improvement. Say, you're interested in improving how we utilize energy. So you would either enter in the market selling energy related products or maybe even something. This is why another reason why capitalism is good, because, you can enter the market in varying ways, generate capital in trial and error, see what works, what doesn't, based on your skill set. So, you have multiple ways to be successful. Trial and error your way to generate a capital to where you can use that capital to, experiment or create varying technologies and improve on those technologies. A good example of this would be like the government has limited resources to explore space and develop space technologies. They already sink, billions of dollars into programs like NASA. Well, if you're a very successful entrepreneur like Elon Musk and you go through the proper channels and whatnot, you can develop your own space agency and, assist in that improvement and that innovation. So without rambling any further, I'll just go ahead and allow you to respond.
Okay, can everyone hear me? All right.
Yeah.
So I'm going to start off with what we're defining socialism as. I have some links here. 1 second. All right. So socialism is the political and economic theory of social organization. It advocates that the means of production, distribution, and exchange should be owned or regulated by the community as a whole. And most of the reasons why it's been that resources and production and distribution and exchange should be owned by people as a whole is because in capitalism, we don't live within an equal society. We don't live in an equal society of neither outcome nor opportunity. But within socialism, the principle is that things become equalized, where everyone is to have the same access, everyone is to get the same. And in this way, within the market, socialism doesn't mean that the market does not exist. It doesn't mean that the market is no longer there, but rather the market is further controlled by government and the people. It's not an elimination of money, and it's not an elimination it's more so of an elimination of large classes that may rule over others. And so that's the problem with capitalism, is that the those who are wealthy take people's desperation, whether it's to get a job or to eat or whatever. They take people's desperation. They just throw them something to say, hey, this might hold you over for a while. And it compels people to take these take these jobs that they may not even want, things that they may not actually want to do. But within a socialist system, the workers can decide to to determine their wages. The workers can decide what they want to make, what their efficiency is. It's not decided by some wealthy person who doesn't work, who doesn't make the product, who doesn't have the sweat, blood, and tears within it. Now, my opponent mentioned technological advancement, and it's all well and good to mention Elon Musk. It's all well and good to do so. However, it wasn't Elon Musk that reached the moon. It wasn't Elon Musk that created the atomic bomb. It wasn't Elon Musk who, helped create things like health services, especially in the United States, or vaccinations and things like that. That was government using an opportunity of funding a wide collective of people to create better health outcomes and technological advancements within our society. So the reason why socialism is better than capitalism is because it's less so because socialism does not allow the worker to be exploited as much as capitalism allows. So that would be my opening.
Nice. Let me go ahead and try to do my best to respond to that. In terms of how you compare it, I think I agree with your explanation on what socialism is and how it functions in terms of financial regulation and market regulation and adjusting that gap between or adjusting the ability to create a gap between or classes or whatnot. But this is just the way that I see it. I don't really see the actual effects of capitalism, like people becoming successful and having more capital than those who are not as successful, and then those people having to struggle in comparison. I don't think that's inherently necessarily wrong with capitalism itself, because I think with the same ability that we have to control the value of our currency, we have the ability to adjust prices and the value of prices. And we can easily, especially in modern times, perhaps not so much in previous history, but I think even in modern times, with how our markets have, like, I say this because like beginning markets were more regulated on or had more to do with like human needs. Like you had markets for travel, markets for food, markets for shelter, like in the beginning time of our history. But as we've technologically advanced to the time period we live in now, there's massive markets, there's like way more markets in relation to like entertainment, technology utilization. Like we have, computers, games, watching programs. People can act and then upload that, and someone in another country can watch it. So we have a much larger expansion for markets. So in terms of providing human needs, we have all these ways that we can address those things. Like we could, instead of having to switch to a regulation system where the market becomes stagnant based on its compartmentalization in terms of having groups of individuals overseeing the generation and the utilization of capital in a very specific way that aligns with the goals of the socialist sector group, whatever that may be. We need more food over here, so we regulate the currency to facilitate that, whatever. Instead of using that, we could easily just explore options with like a universal base income, so that the general needs are met, and the only incentive for earning more capital would to go to luxurious or exotic locations or buy a mansion instead of living in a basic needs housing or something like that. I don't think those issues are necessarily capitalistic issues, and I don't think they're more efficiently solved by switching to socialism. I think they could easily be solved in capitalism, as well as if they're addressed in capitalism, that only makes capitalism more appealing, because you have these individuals that maybe they don't want to participate in capitalism, or maybe they don't want to work at Billy's factory because they don't like the way Billy treats their workers or whatever. Well, they don't have to, because either there's a UBI in place where their basic needs are met through that income, or the prices are just shifted, and the things that are more expensive are entertainment or luxurious things in the market, and then basic need things are made extremely cheap or something like that. Like, I think that's a much safer path. And then in terms of like the government doing things instead of individuals like Elon Musk, well, the government does have programs, and they do have employees for those programs to help improve our environment, which is great. I don't think that's necessarily wrong or anything, but I think with the amount of humans we have in our population, giving the ability to allow those humans to assist those government programs, like for example, like the government didn't it wasn't a governmental program that invented like electricity. We had innovators like Thomas Edison and Nikola Tesla come up with their own versions of the technology, and then try to sell their different versions of technology to the public. And then through that market reflection of the consumers, of the observers of the different technologies, we decided culturally which technological path to go through. Now, if we had a socialist, economic system, people like Tesla, people like Edison would have less opportunity to develop income to create a lab. As well as, I don't know too much about socialism, but in order to regulate the markets and things like that, they also have to regulate what you can do in the market as well. So maybe you're limited to a certain size factory, or certain electric consumption for your factory, whatever. Maybe there's even more regulations in place. You can correct me if I'm wrong about that, but I just think less regulation the better. And when it comes to the issues that arise from that non-regulation in capitalism, like third world countries being exploited for cheaper products, or monopolized companies taking out like the local businesses and stuff, I think that's not even an inherent problem of capitalism, but rather an educational one. The consumer should be more educated in their participation of consumption, whether it's for entertainment or for basic needs products. They should recognize what it does to their local economy to not contribute to local businesses, as well as not being aware of maybe I spend less money and I buy things that are cheaper, and that's fine for my convenience. But if I was more educated, I'd be willing to spend a few more dollars or whatever, so the third world business isn't given any capital, and therefore they don't they don't generate capital to pay for their property tax and whatnot, so they can't continue as a business. So educationally, if we were educated consumers, we could help generate proper growth in our local economic circle, as well as intelligently consume, so that businesses with poor business practices won't be supported and will be forced to close down.
Okay. So there was a lot that you said. I
Sorry.
should have. I'm sorry. I should have cut you off because, but I wanted to hear everything that you were saying. Just to be clear. So I'm going to touch on the Elon Musk thing real quick about how, or like Benjamin Franklin or any of these people. To be
Okay.
clear, Elon Musk gets government subsidies. Government subsidies is the sum of money granted by government or public body. So it's the people who are giving money to an industry or business so that the price of that commodity or service remains low or competitive, right? This is government acting within what we call the quote unquote free market. Tesla's total subsidy is 2.44 billion. Without that 2.44 billion that the people are giving to Tesla, Tesla wouldn't be as great as it is now. So really, Tesla actually benefits off of a socialist-like practice, such as the people get, like I said before, I'm just repeating myself, but the people giving their resources and money to Tesla because we think that Tesla is valuable. This isn't saying, and to be clear, socialism is not saying that markets don't exist, but rather markets are controlled because unfettered capitalism that has barely any regulations, contributes to things like taking up resources that belongs to indigenous people, taking up resources that can be given to other people, or taking resources to the point of denying them to people. So, for example, you take the owner of Dasani Water, a company owning water that is affecting indigenous people, that is affecting the ability of people to get clean water in their own area. Um, I'm sorry, excuse me. Um, so the problem that socialism has is not with the market existing. This isn't to say that you're not going to get your new Tamagotchi, or your new skateboard and your new television and or anything like that. Technological advancement is going to happen under socialism, but it happens with the people's consent. It happens with the people who are involved in the labor's consent. It happens with their work and their power behind it. And what capitalism does is that it exploits those workers who are not as powerful as the wealthy, who are not as powerful as the bourgeoisie. Socialism instead gives them a voice in saying, we make this, we control it. So I have a big contention. I don't feel like I can really move on what I'm saying, with when what you seem to be saying previously is that socialism, it doesn't even have a market. There is a market within socialism, but it is controlled and it is powered by the people. For example, I'm sure you heard of, I could go back to subsidies. We use subsidies for a variety of things, but like I'm sure you've heard of farmer co-ops. It's a cooperative where farmers they all pull their resources into a certain activity. Um, um, and it provides various services to individually farming members, right? It resources land, machinery. These are pulled to members of a farm co-op, right? This is something that we use. This is something that we use within the regular American agricultural system, and it works. It's not, socialism has become such a dirty word where we all freak out, um where we all freak sorry, I'm reading the chat, but where we all freak out when we hear it. But really it's just saying that workers should own the labor, that they shouldn't be pushed into being controlled by some wealthy guy who just had an idea. All of the risk should not just be towards one person. It should be towards everyone who works within it.
Yeah, I never said anything about there being no market in socialism. In fact, I agreed with your presentation of what you explained what socialism is. Um, I was just saying that it's a restriction. It's a compartmentalization. Like you can have advancement, but it would be at a much less rapid of a pace. Like the reason our advancement technologically has been so rapid over the course of our history is because of capitalist incentive. That's what I'm trying to explain. And Elon Musk as an individual, I don't really know much about and I don't really care about. I used him as an example because I was trying to give an example of an entrepreneur, a regular individual that started from the beginning and generated enough capital to and eventually facilitate a technological program like SpaceX, which is on
Yes, but
comparison.
he didn't do it on his own. He did it behind with people behind him who worked for him and who, who carried the labor, whether he had ideas or not. The workers carried the labor. And to also be clear, Musk broke U.S. labor laws, and he did so.
Right. I don't
Uh,
care about the individual specifically. I'm just using an example of an entrepreneur that started from nothing and generated enough capital to explore things like having your own space uh, program.
But it isn't to say that an individual can still do that under socialism. The only difference is that they solely cannot own the resource of exploring space, and they cannot use that resource to exploit others, and they can't use that resource to kind of restrict it towards only people who can pay for it. Everyone should be able to experience scientific advancement like exploring space on an interstellar level.
No, I don't think through socialism, anyone could create their own space program or have the financial capacity to do so. And at the same time, like the workers that participate in his space program are doing it for their own incentives. Like they're not slaves to the program. And at the same time, they can use the capital that they generate from that program to facilitate their own life goals and desires.
Have you heard of any worker from the Tesla plant becoming almost equal to Elon Musk? There
Well,
will always be one Elon Musk,
well,
one
no,
Elon.
no, because Elon Musk is a string, just like Thomas Edison and Nikola Tesla before him. He's just an innovative entrepreneur that understood how the systems within his culture worked and successfully.
Wait, it's funny that you bring up Tesla because Tesla was cheated out of his own invention by capitalist Benjamin Franklin. Had socialism been around during that time, I'm sure that Tesla would have had equal opportunity as Benjamin Franklin to be able to push, and not to mention, he wanted to create free electricity, something that would have benefited a socialist society.
You're right, but he was able to have his own lab to study free electricity or wireless electricity rather. Um, because of his own capital achievements. And at the same time, uh, because of capitalism, he was allowed to go against his opponents like Thomas Edison instead of just being unchallenged, having Edison being unchallenged. Who Edison had governmental support and Nikola Tesla did not. So instead of as Edison going unchallenged, Nikola Tesla had equal opportunity to demonstrate the effectiveness of his technology in public settings and whatnot. Um, and switching to socialism, people can take advantage of each other and manipulate each other, or provide incentive for people to do wrong to another person in any type of ism, capitalism, socialism, any type of ism. I don't really
Sorry,
see.
can you repeat that one more time?
Yeah, I'm just saying, like anyone could do things to take advantage of another person, or be negative towards that person, or defame that person, or whatnot within their own means in any type of ism in
Except
socialism.
it's much harder within a socialist system because within the socialist system, it is not one person who privately owns the business, the company, the whatever. It is a variety of people who own the business or company or whatever within
Well,
something similar to a democracy.
in the case of Edison and Tesla, it's their own companies versus each other. It's not one person owns all the rights to the company and the other person has to go against that. They each have their own things that they're putting to the test to each other. So I'm saying that I don't see how, things like
Yeah,
that.
okay, so now you're talking about Tesla and Edison and Tesla, the business. You're originally talking about Tesla and Edison, the person,
No,
the
Tesla
individual.
Tesla putting his technology against Edison's technology is not an example of one person owns the business and the worker. That's two people having their own intellectual property going against each other.
Yeah, and that's not
That's
what I'm talking
capitalism.
about. And by the way, intellectual property wouldn't exist under socialism. What would exist is that these two people would rather be working together for the good of the community so that everyone can benefit from their great ideas. But instead, what had happened was Franklin took Tesla's ideas, and basically Tesla ended up dirt poor by the end of his life. Had this and this was capable under a capitalist system in which Franklin, who had far more funding, even who had far more wealth, even before government gave him any funding, he had far more wealth, he had far more fame, brand recognition, and he was able to take his ideas, use laborers to implement his ideas within our society, leaving Tesla to you know doing Tesla dirty essentially. This was capable for him in a capitalist system. In a socialist system, that wouldn't have flied.
See that doesn't make any sense to me because like in a socialist system, we have the things that we have in place, the social structures that we have in place, and then we have regulation in terms of how the workers participate and how they generate income, and then what that capital can be used for. But we're discussing two individuals. Yeah, I mean you can. It's way too complex to get into the
Yeah, no,
details of why Tesla.
but it discusses the issue of capitalism,
But it
which is
doesn't.
class warfare.
It doesn't right. But I'm saying even in this example you're giving where it was class warfare or whatever, Tesla as an individual had nothing compared to any other person, but was still able to go against Edison as an equal counterpart from the perspective of the people he's presenting to.
They were
So,
certainly not equal nor considered equal within society at the time.
no, I don't want to be misrepresented. I'm not
I'm
saying equal in
sorry.
terms. I'm not saying equal in terms of like how much capital they each individually had or how much influence they had in higher social circles like
Mhm, mhm,
the people in government and whatnot. I'm saying you know, and this is why I brought up education of the consumer
mhm.
because I think that's the main issue why Tesla suffers at the end is because of the education of the consumer and not because of the system that he participated in. Because the system that he participated in, while he did not have the same footing as Edison did, where Edison started because of how Edison grew up, the families that the circles that he was in, whatever, the governmental influence, blah blah blah. Maybe they didn't have the same starting point, but
Mhm.
Tesla had every opportunity to get to the point of Edison because he had the same knowledge. He had the same ability to create his own version of the market and present that to people. And he did generate capital as well as popularity to the point where he was able to build his famous tower or at least start construction on it. Now, where the path of him failing as a businessman or being stomped by Edison and his influence, I don't think that's inherently a capitalist problem or the responsibility of capitalism, but rather the consumers and the other participators of the society.
So, I think you said earlier that Tesla didn't receive government funding. Is that something that you said?
Well, maybe at some point, but I'm saying initially, like the only reason he had technology wasn't just because the government gave him money.
One second. I'm sorry, just 1 second. Mhm.
And in the same scenario with Elon Musk, where he most likely, yeah, I'm sure you can show hundreds of thousands of dollars given to him by the government, especially when he started working on space programs. Um, that was not necessary for how profitable he was as an entrepreneur with the success of PayPal. Um, That's the right person, right? I'm thinking of the same person.
Say, what did you say? Sorry, say it again.
He is the owner of PayPal.
Oh, I don't know who the owner of PayPal is.
Yeah,
So,
Elon Musk. Elon Musk is the founder of PayPal. Okay, yeah.
oh,
So
really? That makes
yeah,
okay. Sorry.
because and no, and that's an interesting thing. Like PayPal is not a needs market. Like just a few decades ago, we were very needs based in terms of what our markets were focused on: transportation, food, shelter. But in modern times, the more successful businesses are convenience businesses. Like PayPal is a perfect example. Elon Musk is so successful and so rich because PayPal is a service that doesn't require much input. Like, it's not a factory that has to keep creating product. It's digital, and it's just a convenience thing. It's allowing people to move numbers digitally, moving, selling and buying, and moving their currency digitally. It's just a service that moves, ones and zeros around for you. But because people have the desire to use it, that's a market, and he can explore that market in capitalism and become successful. And if he's the type of person that, say he was like Nikola Tesla when they were a kid, and that's why he named his business after Tesla, is because he just liked to tinker with things and invent things. And while I'm not saying it's impossible for him to pursue those things in socialism, my argument is that it's much more rapid and there's much more opportunity for you to pursue those things in capitalism. Because
But again, so a
markets.
needs market doesn't cease to exist just because socialism has been implemented.
I agree with
Um,
that.
yes, right. So so you just merely think that it'll be very slow.
I think it would be much less rapid because not
Why?
only because individuals on an individual level, everyone has the opportunity to become. You can say they don't, but everyone has the opportunity to become like an Elon Musk. They
Yeah, but
just
they don't. No, they
no, they
don't.
just require the motivation. In modern times,
No, they
you
don't.
need to educate
No,
yourself.
no, that's an argument for a merit-based system that everyone has access to the same things as everyone else. Everyone does not have the same access as Elon Musk may have had
Okay,
throughout his
all right.
child.
I'll be fair. I'm not saying like a child in a third world country that doesn't have standard access to
No, I'm talking about a
technology.
child within the United States. The chances that this is like saying everyone can become president if they work hard enough, but the chances of being president is like 1 in a million. No, everyone can't be president. Everyone can't be Elon Musk. And the problem is not necessarily people being equal and being able to have the ideas,
I'm
but
not.
rather within socialism, it's not about whether people are equal within having the ideas,
I'm
but
not.
hold on, but because Elon Musk does not have the weight of the labor upon him, that everyone company should be treated almost equal to him within wealth, within status, within all of that. They have, without those people who labor within Tesla's business, Tesla would be nothing without those people. So why shouldn't those people be treated practically equal within wealth and status as as not, I'm sorry, not Tesla, as Musk?
Yeah, I want to. I'm not saying anyone can be any specific thing that has existed. I'm saying anyone has the opportunity to be successful. I'm not saying like they'll all
Well,
have.
that's not true either.
I don't understand why it's not true that if you live in a quote unquote first world country and you have standard access to, say you're not homeless or an orphan or whatever, you have standard access to um, you know in education, like you go to school or you have access to the internet. I don't see any reason why you couldn't pursue
What is your definition of
and then
success? Maybe that's the problem. What is your definition of success?
generating enough capital to pursue whatever lifestyle you desire within reason.
So do you think that someone who is an electrician is successful?
It depends on what their goals are, and to push it even further, to say like just to put a cap on it, like say successful is only if you pass like 100K a year or something like that. I think anyone has if they're within the first world country, have access to education, I think they can do that. And it's interesting that you bring up labor and saying like in modern, that's old world to me. Like in modern times, if you know, just to give the developer of this server as an example, like if you have access to the information, it doesn't even matter if you're a teenager. If you have access to the information and you have a comfortable space to utilize that access, like, you know, I can sell lemonade until I save up for a cheap laptop, and then I can learn how to program on that laptop, and then I build websites and I sell the domains to people who don't know how to build websites and they want to buy some. I can be my own man, my own boss, the only employee, and I can generate capital off of my
Yes, but you are
skill.
talking about an only employee. Now, if he was employing multiple people,
You
then
don't
those
have. That's what I'm
people
saying. You
should
don't
be
have
have.
to. You don't have to employ
Of
multiple
course you don't
people in
have to,
order to be
but
successful.
that's not an example even analogous to Elon Musk. Elon Musk can't do anything that he's doing without the thousands of people who work for him. Now hold on. Everyone, so I said the electrician would be an example, but you would be willing to say, wouldn't you, that most people in the United States would love to live in a 3,000 square foot home, and not have to look at their neighbor and say, oh, that neighbor is richer than me or has a better porch than me or whatever, right? You would say that most people would prefer to be able to live within comfort and luxury, right?
Before I answer that, I really don't want to get stuck on Elon Musk specifically as a
Uh-huh.
person and what he does. I'm simply saying because of how our modern culture works and how you can utilize the thoughts that you have in your mind in terms of intellectual property, before he even had a business with several employees, just say like he was able to code and run PayPal himself, and it was only like a few thousand people were using it. So he just had a server and he didn't need multiple employees. He could generate more than 100K a year just off of that. I'm using him as an example because it's a person that didn't have to go through traditional means like creating a large physical business and selling physical products to generate enough capital to pursue the next steps in their life. Now, those next steps being like I make a company that employs thousands of employees and those employees deserve specific rights and I'm not providing, that's separate. I'm talking about the ability to be successful in modern times using your
So
intellectual properties.
so if Elon Musk had so say Elon Musk had this knowledge, right? Where did Elon Musk get this knowledge from?
I don't know where he personally got it, but you can
Well,
access it from
just
the internet.
guess. I'm just saying, just well, what if Elon Musk was the only person in the world who had access to this resource or had this knowledge?
Why would
Would
that be the case?
this is just a hypothetical. Would it be perfectly fine for him to refuse to give other people the opportunity to have this knowledge and access? What if Elon Musk is getting ready to die? Like he's terminally ill, right? Is that perfectly okay for him to deny the access to this resource in which he learned how to do this from? We'll have no more coders in the world if it was just Elon Musk.
I mean, that's an odd question. I can give you my personal answer, but I can't tell you objectively what the
Give me the
answer
answer
is.
you give in a debate in this debate.
I would just give you my personal answer, which is if someone has knowledge that would benefit others and they choose to withhold it, I think that's wrong.
And
But
that's what the capitalist system does.
I don't
So if
think so because anyone has access to that knowledge, and if that person
no,
withholds that
everyone does
knowledge and they,
not.
well, I don't understand what you mean. Like,
You, you
if someone, you know, puts two rocks together and they say I have two rocks, and then they know that they just did math, but they don't teach anyone that math, and then they die. Are you saying no one else is ever going to come up with the idea if I put two rocks together, I have two rocks?
do you think okay, so do you think that everyone has the access to do a brain surgery?
Everyone has access to the
Or
knowledge.
I'm sorry, everyone has access to knowledge of doing brain surgery?
Hmm.
I disagree. Where would everyone find that access?
I mean, you can look up complex brain surgeries on the internet. Maybe you won't understand the subject matter, but it's there. And you can take the steps to understand the subject matter as well.
So do you think everyone has access to things like higher education and college?
I would say not everyone, like a third world child or a child
Well, I
soldier or
mean,
like
let's just
someone
use the
on an
United
island.
States. Let's just use the United States as an example.
I mean, there's homeless people and, impoverished people and things like that. So I would say generally, based on our modern social structures, there's computers and internet and most school systems and stuff. So I would say generally.
Well, the socialist system would argue that those homeless people shouldn't exist, but the capitalist system would argue that homeless people are inherently a part of the system of capitalism.
That's interesting, but it's funny that you say like the homeless people shouldn't exist. I believe that homeless people wouldn't have to exist even in a capitalistic society. You could provide basic standard structure housing with like just your basic needs met, and then if you want something more
Sure, so who's gonna do it?
luxurious than that,
Who's gonna house all the homeless people?
I'm sure there's tons of volunteers that would be interested, as
I
well as
mean, there's
you
tons
could.
of volunteers now within our capitalist system, and yet we still have a almost record-breaking homeless
I
people
don't think
within a
that's
lot of
inherently
Western countries.
I don't think that's inherently wrong with capitalism. I think that's wrong with the current participators, the people that are in charge of making those decisions. I
Within
don't think that's
within the
wrong with the
socialist
system.
system within the socialist system, money would already be put forward to get those homeless people off of the streets, but a capitalist system says, "Oh, somebody's going to do it eventually."
I don't agree that that's inherent with a capitalist system. I think you can do it in a capitalist system as well, and just we haven't focused on that.
How
And I
are
don't
homeless
agree that we
people
need.
not inherent within
And
the
hold
capitalist
on,
system? I'm sorry, go ahead.
hold
Yeah.
on. No, you're fine. I'm because capitalism doesn't mean that you have a chance to be born homeless, or that if you end up homeless you'll remain homeless forever. That's not inherent with how capitalism functions inherently.
Yes, but
um,
capitalism does mean that if
Capitalism
a
allows for it to exist, but it doesn't mean that it's a fate that is inescapable, or one that you could be born with. You know what I mean? Like, you could be born in a situation that you don't want to be in, regardless of what system is in place.
but the
Depending.
capitalist system does dictate that regular people, even their own personal biases, can control in which someone stays within a cycle of
No,
poverty.
the
Hold on,
system
a
does
capital
not.
wait a minute, a capitalist system could al a cap the capitalist system could also dictate in which, because people's resources cannot be just necessarily taken for the common good of other people within the collective, that it's okay for homeless people to exist as long as the wealthy get to keep their 10 million or 10 billion bucks, right? But a socialist system says that if we know that the hoarding of wealth is part of it can that I'm sorry, that the homeless situation or poverty situation can be solved by people just not being greedy, then I'd say that the socialist system is far more better and efficient to getting rid of things like poverty and homelessness compared to capitalism, which says, oh, we'll do it when people feel like it.
So let me ask you this. Do you think it would be better to convince someone to be kind to the homeless, or to force someone to be kind to the homeless?
What? Oh, I almost thought. Okay. Um, Repeat that. I'm sorry. I had noise on my phone.
Do you think it's better or more efficient in the long term, to convince someone or provide incentive for someone to provide for the homeless or care for the homeless, or
It's
to force them?
It's far better for government to make the call that people cannot hoard money. Uh, people
That's
who
not.
make whom well, I'm answering. If you refer to this as force, then you would be saying that the government has a monopoly on violence. But um, in my explanation, it's far better for government to stipulate that the wealthy cannot keep people within poverty simply because they want to hoard wealth.
But see, I don't think the wealthy are keeping people in poverty because they're hoarding wealth, because wealth is determined by the users of the wealth. At the same time, that doesn't really answer my question. I'm asking you, do you think it's more effective in the long term to take someone's funds from them and use it based on what you think you're supposed to use it for? or convince them that what you're trying to use it for is correct, and they decide to do it on their
The
own?
wealthy will never be convinced to use their money to help those in poverty. We
I,
see it now within the
I don't
capitalist
think
system.
I don't think that's necessary to help the people in poverty for the wealthy people to do it. I don't think that's
I
necessary.
certainly
But
think
that
so.
still
They have
doesn't
the
answer my
funds to do
question.
so. For the collective to protect the impoverished and to protect the impoverished, for the collective, it is better for government to redistribute those people's wealth.
Even if it's against their will?
Yes.
You think do you think that's more productive than incentivizing or convincing them to
We
do it
do
on
it
their own?
now within the progressive tax system. The only difference is that we just need to raise the progressive tax system. If not raise it, implement it more so on the wealthy, which, by
Okay.
the way, the wealthy have argued that they would rather more taxes be taken out of their wealth.
So you're saying we do it now. But I'm asking, do you think it's more efficient or more effective to do it against their will rather than I'm not asking whether we do it now or we're going to do it do you think it's more effective or more efficient to force your population to use the currency the specific way or to show them the benefits, incentivize them, or convince them to do it on their own?
It's better to encourage it and still take it. So I mean, you can encourage that people give more out of their own, but government should definitely take the lead in implementing a rigorous tax system that it to that that automatically takes more from the wealthy to benefit the impoverished, to make things equal and give more opportunity and access for others.
That's interesting. So the government should take wealth to solve these problems, and instead of like, why wouldn't the government, do educational programs or do like social rallies, like see who's active in the community and it has issues with this goal or with this situation and wants to participate?
Communities, if the wealthy cared, the wealthy would be engaging in these activities already. Communities are perfectly welcome to engage in rallies and things to help the poor and impoverished. But yet
So
we still have a rising we still have trouble with impoverished people and homeless people. The wealthy are just essentially virtue signaling and giving barely anything. I mean, Jeff Bezos is a really good example of this. Jeff Bezos, he gives into philanthropy, but he's only giving like something like a less than 10%, or like I think it's even less than 10% of his wealth.
what percentage of the population would you consider to be wealthy in the United States?
Um, it's a small percentage. I definitely think it's a small percentage in comparison to the people, but
And how much capital do you think is necessary to solve the homeless crisis in the United States?
I think that in order to solve the homeless crisis in the United States, it's not that you just take a bunch of money and you just pull it in, but you take that money and you redistribute it across a wide variety of different programs within the government sector.
That sounds like you said the same thing twice to me. Can you go more in depth
I'm
to that?
sorry. Which part? Sorry.
You said that they don't just pull in money and then do something with that money. Instead, they collect money and redistribute it. That sounds
Sorry.
like the same.
So what I mean is like we're not sorry. So what I mean is we're not putting it into like this one big ball and saying do something with it. So we'd be talking about things like but excuse me, I'm sorry. Pulling money into communities that have I'm sorry, putting funds into communities that have less wealth. So for example, schooling. School districts that do not have equal wealth as more wealthier school districts. Um, uh, Shelters, homeless shelters run by government. Um, Sobriety centers. 1 minute. Oh, okay. Sobriety centers. Um, and this goes to also I think also through defunding the police would help as well. That's a lot that has a lot to do with private prisons and with the wealthy taking advantage of people and exploiting them via private prisons. So um it's like I said before, putting more funds into things like TANF, food stamps, disability, mental health services, creating mental health services through the government, instead of the idea of private health, universal health care, things like that. I think Stone's about to talk. He took off his mute.
Yeah, you called it. We're actually at the end of the 50 minutes, so do you each just want to do your closing statements?
You
Sure,
can do yours unless you want me to go first.
you can go first. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll keep this as short as possible. I'll just basically say, a lot of things were discussed about socialism and capitalism. But I think, especially in how, our governmental structure has been designed, it's very like the power to the people have the power. Maybe that's not expressed much in modern times, but I think it's really an educational issue. I don't think it's a structural issue in terms of, socialism, capitalism, democracy, whatever. I think it's an educational issue with the people participating in those things. I think within capitalism, you can not only provide incentive to businesses to participate in good ways, like not even the wealthy, fractional percentage of the population, but just upcoming businesses, like you get food drive businesses related, or basic local construction businesses or something. You incentivize them and say, oh, if you do this promotion where you build a bunch of homeless shelters, you can advertise around the city, or it's this big event where people come and help the homeless, and maybe you sell some homes at the same time, or promote your business more. There's incentives in place that can be utilized, where and same thing with your basic needs being met with like UBIs, or by making the basic things like food and shelter super cheap, and then just luxurious or entertainment things be the expensive stuff. So within our society, within capitalism, there are things that can be implemented to improve the quote unquote cons to capitalism, and switching to a government. And I think the problems are mostly educational based, and switching to a new governmental system, even if it's just in relation to how finances are functioning. I think will be conflicting with the current status quo, and instead of just fixing the issues we have, we would be moving towards creating new issues. At the same time, we would maybe not necessarily stop or stunt our technological or innovative growth, but it would certainly it would slow down immensely, in my opinion. So that's my closing statement.
Okay. So it seems that my opponent, he's saying that it's an education issue, not a capitalism or a socialism issue, which to me it doesn't seem to actually be defending his position about capitalism being superior. What I did was I explained how socialism is superior to capitalism, in which capitalism relies on the exploitation of this lower class, and it relies on the exploitation of class differences. It relies on the exploitation of especially lower class laborers. It relies on people's desperation, and it doesn't allow for actual redistribution of equal outcomes, equal opportunities, and a more equalized wealth, in which you're not going to see a group of people on one side of the street enjoying their lives in a lap of luxury, while the other side is living in a dilapidated shithole, basically. Saying that education is the issue doesn't actually address whether capitalism is superior, but actually, what it seems to suggest is that capitalism is far too complicated for the average man to understand. And so clearly, we need a system that is equal in understanding, and is equal in its ability to elevate all people, not just the wealthy. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you both so much for debating, as always. I'll post the voting poll in debate chat. Just a reminder to everyone, don't base any of your votes off of what you just personally agree with in terms of positions. Like if you're a capitalist, don't just base your vote off of you being a capitalist, or if you're a socialist, same deal. Actually follow the criteria of the voting polls and base your vote solely off that criteria. And thank you all for tuning in. And also, just one last reminder, you only have 7 minutes to vote, and you cannot change your votes. So should you make a mistake, just reach out to a staff member and we'll manually correct the mistake. Thank you both.